A wonderful morning and evening, everyone who has joined today. From Managing Family, I would like to extend my warm welcome and sincere thanks to customers, partners, and users who are interested in our product. Endpoint management and security are our primary focus area. Let me introduce myself. My name is Murugesh, and I'm a product specialist with Managing, where I'm working for past 4 years. And my focus area is supporting and implementing Endpoint Central product to ensure organization optimize their endpoint management and security. Once again, I welcome all to Endpoint Central training. We are in week 6, and today's topic is setting up legacy devices and onboarding modern devices. And if you have anyone missed the previous training, please feel free to go to this website and watch the training videos. And also, please note that your participation certificate that includes series 1 to 4 are available in the link below. Please feel free to go there and download the training certificate. So today's topic is setting up legacy devices and onboarding modern devices. Before we start, I would like to touch base with you of the agenda. I will give you an overview about what Endpoint Central is, and also I will give you an overview of architecture and comparison between Endpoint Central on-prem and cloud. And I will explain you about what are the onboarding methods we have in Endpoint Central. If you are a customer who's looking for high availability, I will talk about the failover server. And if you would like to manage your devices that is remotely available, we will talk about how to manage them through Secure Gateway Server. I will also talk about baseline configuration for new endpoints, onboarding modern devices, and at the end of the session, we can have live Q&A session. So if you have any question while we go through the training, please feel free to drop a comment, and our expert team will try to answer your question. Once again, so what is Endpoint Central? Endpoint Central is a unified endpoint management solution where you can manage your different devices that belong to different operating system from a single console. So Endpoint Central offers features such as provision and configure, where you can configure your endpoints remotely from a centralized console. We have application management, where you can package your software and deploy to multiple devices at the same time. We have asset intelligence. We have remote device management, where you can remotely connect with an endpoint and you can manage it. We have automated update management, where you can automate patch deployments, and it will periodically run the background and keep pushing down the patches. We have data loss prevention, where you mark your file as a sensitive and you manage how the sensitive data should be accessed. We have web protection, where you can restrict users from accessing any website during the work hours. We have device compliance, we have analytics and reporting, we have app and device control, and ransomware protection. So this is a quick comparison about what are the operating system we support in Endpoint Central from Agent. So for the Windows, we support from Windows 10 to Windows 11. For server OS, we support from Windows Server or 2008 to 2025. For the Mac, we support from Sonoma to Mojave. For Linux, we support from Ubuntu to Oracle Linux Server. So what are the core capabilities we have in Endpoint Central? So we focus on endpoint management and as well as endpoint security. In endpoint management, this is where it comes with the asset management, where you can manage your inventory, what are the softwares and hardwares are available in your network, and you can deploy configurations where you can granularly control your endpoints with the configuration you deploy. We have OS lifecycle, where you can capture an image and deploy. We have application lifecycle, automate patch deployments, kiosk, device tracking, and remote control, which will ultimately reflect to your end user experience, where you can maximize cost savings, and you can reduce your help desk tickets using our self-service portal, where you can publish the softwares to users. and they can see the softwares by themselves and install it, which will reduce their disk tickets. So then endpoint security, we have applications control, web protection, and all that we have all talked about. So I'm happy to share you that Endpoint Central is recognized by Gartner, and it is given as a voice of customer of 2024. Back to our topic today. So we are going to talk about setting up legacy devices and modern devices. So before we start, we are going to look at an example where John is responsible for managing a distributed workflow. So when we talk about distributed workflow, he has a head office, and he has server setup. He has branch offices that he needs to manage. He has VPN users. He has remote users, and he also has users with the mobile devices, which is corporate owned mobile devices. So John is given with the task to manage this distributed workforce. How can John can achieve using Endpoint Central? So how it works? So this is where we will talk about architecture. Let's say John is given a distributed workflow to manage, and this time he is going to use an Endpoint Central on-prem server. So when you go for Endpoint Central on-prem, you will get a software from us, and you will install that in any of the machine, which is going to act as a Endpoint Central on-prem server, right? So then you can download the agent. So because Endpoint Central is an agent-based solution, you download a lightweight agent from your Endpoint Central instance and then install that on your client in order to manage it. So once you host the server in your environment, you will gain access to the console, something like this. So you will access the console using HTTPS protocol, using flat name or private IP address, or the internal FQDN or public FQDN with the port 8383. So once you log in, you can go to agent and download the agent from your console. So this will download a agent that is intended for your environment. So we have a specific certificates that authenticates with your environment. Then you install that agent on the client. So now the agent contacts the server in every 90 minutes. That's the default refresh cycle we have. So every 90 minutes, the agent contacts the server and they will check if there are any updates for them. So if there are any updates and if they are the targets, then they will download and process that configuration. It could be a patch, it could be a server, it could be a software deployment, or it could be a configuration deployment. So once they know they are the target, they will download and process it, which means the communication between the agent and the server is absolutely necessary. And here, if the machine is in the same network as endpoints and the server, they will directly communicate using a private IP address. If the agent is outside of the network and if they don't connect with VPN, if you would like to manage them, then you will have to publish your endpoint central server with a public FQDN or public IP address. Then only the agent that are outside of the network will be able to find your endpoint central server that is internally hosted. So this is where the secure gateway comes into the picture. So here, instead of publishing endpoint central, you publish a secure gateway server. You can keep it outside of a network, outside of your domain for better security. So here, the computers that are outside of the network, they will reach the secure gateway server first. They will get authenticated, and then they will forward the communication to the endpoint central server. Right? So this is a secure gateway server is a specially designed reverse proxy. How to configure them and how it exactly works, we will talk about it later during the session. So here we have another component that is distribution server, and One of the purpose of the distributed server is to reduce or manage your bandwidth consumption at your remote site. With the distributed server, whatever the software you deploy or patch you deploy, distributed server will download and keep a copy locally. So the agent in the same network will reach this distributed server and download from here. If the distributed server is not available, every agent will contact the EC server and download those respective patches individually, which could consume bandwidth at the remote site. So as you're going for on-prem server, we provide integration with your on-prem Active Directory directly. And we also provide failover server if you're looking for high availability. So this is about on-prem server, a basic architecture. So next is John is given a task to manage a distributed workforce. And last time he was using an on-prem, and this time he's going to use a cloud architecture or cloud instance. So here, all you have to do is just sign up with our cloud instance, and we will host service for you. So as it's a SaaS-based, we have data center across globe, and we have in Australia, we have in China, India, and US. So we have a global presence, and you can choose where the data, where your endpoint central instance should be hosted. So as the cloud server is already outside of the network, you'll have to download the agent and then install that agent on the client. And the client should have internet connectivity to communicate with the cloud server, because the cloud server is already outside of the network. If it is outside of the network, if the agent is outside of the network, the internet connectivity is fine. But if the agent is within your head office, and if you have a firewall in between, you'll have to whitelist the domains that are needed to communicate with the cloud server. So here as well, we have a distributed server. Here as well, it is work to reduce the bandwidth at the remote site. But in cloud instance, the distributed server is the one which we will use to integrate with your on-prem Active Directory. It acts as an AD connector. So with the AD integration, we can fetch computer objects, and we can use it for agent push installation. So we need some component in your on-prem to act as the AD connector, and we also need some component in your on-prem to find where the machine is and perform agent bulk installation, which we will talk about later. So the main difference between the on-prem architecture and the cloud architecture is, with the on-prem, you are responsible for hosting the server, you are responsible for maintenance and AC upgrade. In cloud server, we take care of the upgrades, we take care of the maintenance while you focus on your endpoints. So if you're using Azure or AWS Marketplace, you can purchase our Endpoint Central on-prem services from there. So we talked about secure gateway server, and let's take a quick look at how we can configure it. If you're using Endpoint Central on-prem, and all you have to do is go to console, go to admin, once you go to admin, please find the NAT settings. In here, you will have to fill in the public IP address. And then you assign the public IP address to the machine, which is going to act as a secure gateway server. So once it is done, all you have to do is go and search for Endpoint Central Secure Gateway Server. Go into that website, click on download exe, which will download exe such as this. And then you can just run this exe file, which will install and will ask for Endpoint Central details to integrate with. So you have to click on next. Once it is installed, it will show you a wizard where you will have to type in Endpoint Central flat name, whichever is reachable, and then you'll have to provide the port. So in this case, this is the computer name, and then port 8383. Click on OK. This is a credential that you have for Endpoint Central login. Click on valid. And fill in the details about the ports. It will auto-populate, but if you have a unique, or if you have a if you have changed the ports for your requirement, you can fill in that. Click on next, and it will configure for you. So this is about secure gateway server. And if you are a customer who is looking for high availability, you can go for failover server. So it is basically a primary and secondary setup with the use of virtual private IP address. And as a prerequisite, you will have to have a common database and common file system where it will be kept in a common place, and from the primary or secondary they can reach and get activated, right? So once the primary server is active, the secondary will be in listening mode, and if the primary goes down, the secondary server will become a primary server, will become active. And it is with the use of virtual private IP address. This is where you will configure that into Endpoint Central agent. So they only know the virtual IP address to communicate with, and virtual IP address will take care of routing the traffic with whatever the machine as active. We have summary server architecture as well. So this will be useful to you if you are a customer and you're managing more than 30,000 endpoints. So when you manage 30,000 endpoints and when you go for Endpoint Central on-prem, providing resources, system resources and bandwidth for a single machine will be a tedious task. This is why we provide you probes where you can build Endpoint Central server for each site, and then configure a summary server on top of it. You can access a summary server to view all the details about in the different probe services. So in this way, you divide the resources amongst different on-prem setup. So lastly, let's talk about agent installation. What are the ways to onboard the agents? So we have out-of-box provisioning, where we can use our mobile device management product, and you can do out-of-box provisioning using Azure, ABM, and Samsung Knox. We have already in provisioning. That is where if you have already running operating system, there are methods to onboard those computers with agents. Lastly, bare metal provisioning. If the machine doesn't have an operating system in them, we can use OS deployer to install agent along with an image in it. So let's talk about agent installation methods though that we have. So let me take you to the console. We talked about the console, how they look like. You can go to agent first, and then to computer, download agent. So as we discussed, this will download an agent.exe file, which you can transfer it to a target machine and then install the agent. This is a manual method of agent installation. So if you need an automatic way or bulk agent installation, if you have on-prem Active Directory, we provide integration with Endpoint Central, where you have to fill in the details about domain name, domain credentials, AD domain name, and domain controller. So basically, what we will do is we will use this credential on domain controller to fetch computer objects from Active Directory. So once it is integrated, you can go to computers, click on Add Computer, choose the domain that you just integrated, which will fetch the computer objects for you. You can just select them and click on Next and perform the agent installation. For this method, for this push installation method, there are two prerequisites. One is from the AD integration, we only get to know what is the flat name of that machine. So the flat name should be pingable within your environment. That is how we will find where the machine is. And then the credential that you use to add the domain in the earlier phase should have read and write access on the target machine to place the agent binaries and start the agent installation. So once it is integrated, we can perform agent bulk installation. But with AD integration, that comes with even more features, that is scope of management policy. Because we already have centralized management, that is Active Directory, and Endpoint Central is providing you an option whether to manage that machine in Endpoint Central based on Active Directory. For example, the first option is talking about if you add a machine to an Active Directory, whether the Endpoint Central should pick it up and install the agent automatically, because we can detect the changes in Active Directory and we can perform agent push installation. At the same time, if you remove the machine from Active Directory, we can detect that as well and then remove it from Endpoint Central. So next, if the machine is inactive for a certain amount of time or days, we can first notify you about it is inactive for these many days. And second, we can also remove that machine from Endpoint Central scope of management if it is inactive for a certain days, right? So why we have this option is the inactive computers, when you remove it, it will remove the license for that is assigned to that machine, so that you can reuse it for the new machines. Also, if the old agents are staying behind in your endpoint central, yeah, and if they are inactive, whatever the patches that is reported as missing will remain missing. So because of that, we are giving you an option that automatically removes them. Next is you can configure how often it should sync in with your Active Directory. And lastly, it is about target. You can target this to an entire domain or particular OUs or particular group for this, right? So this is one of the method about how to onboard the agents. Let's talk about few other agent onboarding methods. We have automatic agent installation method, that is through web console, that is push installation using SM policy. We have manual agent installation. This is where you copy over the agent installation binaries and start the installation. We have silent agent installation, where you pass a silent command and install the agent silently. And we have GPUs. So we talked about agent push installation, and it involves two of the main prerequisites. If you're not able to meet those prerequisites, you can use our GPU methods to configure the uh, agent installation through your GPUs, native GPU. We have scheduler script where you can configure them manually, or you can use our GPU lightweight tool, where you have to run this GPU lightweight tool on a domain controller, and you can decide to which OU it should target to. You can add the installation agent installation binaries to it, and you can select if it should be a startup policy or immediate task, or what script type it should use. And then lastly, you can target to enter domain or particular OU. So this tool will create a GPO policy for you in your domain controller and then install the agent for you. So one thing to be mindful here, it is a single one-time setup, and it will only deploy the agent that you have configured. But if you upgrade the Endpoint Central server, and then you'll have to replace the agent binaries with the latest one, because sometimes the old agent binaries may not work. So there's a manual intervention needed here as you go forward with the agent of with the server operates. So we talked about one of the method. We have IP range based tool where you can create IP ranges in a text file, and you can run a script that looks at the IP ranges and then distribute the agent installation binaries. If you have any MDT tool, or if you have SCCM, we can use SCCM to deploy the agent as well. So these are Windows onboarding methods. And if you are using Mac machines, you can integrate with Apple Business Manager. And once it is integrated, the profile will be onboarded and the agent will be installed automatically. And if you're using Linux machines, there are options to install Linux agents as well, where you can use manual Linux agent installation, where you can download Linux binaries, copy that over to the Linux machine, set permissions like this. First, you have to unzip, verify the files are there. You have to set some permission executables, and then run installer. Also, you can use agent remote installation as well, where you will have to go in here in agent settings, and Linux settings. So you will have to add a credential here to the Linux agent settings, where it should have sudo permissions, and then you can input the computer name, and with those permissions, it can push install the agent. So in this method, we will only use the sudo permission to install the agent and not more than that. So we talked about agent installation method, manual and automatic for Linux, Mac, and Windows. And next is bare metal provisioning. So with the bare metal provisioning, what options you have is, if you can install the agent into one machine, and you can capture image from it, and then you can deploy that image using our OS deployer. You can use bootable media such as Pixie, USB, or ISO, and then boot the devices and install the image, and it install along with the agent. And agent will communicate back to the EC server console. So these are the agent onboarding methods we have so far. And I will forward this to Induja, my colleague, to talk about modern management and how to onboard mobile devices. Induja, thank you. The floor is yours.
So like my colleague said, in this session of the training, I'm going to take you through the methods that we have to onboard mobile devices into the Endpoint Central. So when it comes to mobile devices, it includes the handheld devices like Android, iOS, smartphones, as well as the laptops and your Mac devices like Windows and Mac devices as well. So when it comes to mobile devices, there are options for provisioning the in-use devices, and there are options for out-of-the-box enrollment. So when we say in-use, these are primarily for devices that are being used by the users in your organization already. meaning the BYOD devices that are used by the employees in your organization. So the company would want to manage such devices as well. So in those cases, we have an option called self-enrollment. So I will take you through the console and the option that we have in the console to enroll an option through enroll your device through self-enrollment. So in self-enrollment, you will have a common QR code or an URL. So what you need to do is you just need to broadcast this URL or QR code to the users in your organization, and they just need to access it. So when they access it, they will have to authenticate themselves through their AD credentials. With that, Endpoint Central will know that this user belongs to this organization. So once the authentication is done, the device will get enrolled into Endpoint Central. So this applies to your handheld devices as well as your laptops and desktops. So here, as I mentioned, the users will have to authenticate themselves through their AD credentials. So that is a mandatory workflow. So it's like a prerequisite. And in this enrollment method, you will also get the option to limit the number of devices enrolled by each user. So for example, someone from the top management may have multiple devices that are provided by the organization. Maybe someone at the lower level will have only one device. So if you want to limit the number of devices for each user, that is possible. And you can also select the group of AD and the users belonging to that specific group to be able to enroll their devices into Endpoint Central. So these options can be customized under the self-enrollment settings here. So you can allow the number of devices to be able to enroll by each user. And you can also restrict certain platforms to be enrolled into Endpoint Central. So based on your organizational needs, you can configure these settings and you can allow self-enrollment for BYOD devices primarily. But when it comes to the company-owned devices, where you want to give the users an out-of-the-box experience, meaning when the device is newly provided to them, and upon accessing it, they should immediately have access to the Endpoint Central agent, and the devices should get under the Endpoint Central management. So if you want to configure such provisioning, you have multiple options. There is Azure Autopilot, which is for Windows devices, and there is Apple Business Manager, which is for your Mac devices and iPads and iOS devices. And Zero Touch and Knox enrollment options are for Android devices. So more specifically, Zero Touch will be for all the Android devices, and Knox enrollment would be for specifically Samsung devices. So we will go through each and every out-of-the-box enrollment options that we have seen now. First, I'll take you through the Windows enrollment, which is Azure Autopilot. So the prerequisites for this specific enrollment option is you need to have a third-party security certificate for your Endpoint Central server if you are using on-premises Endpoint Central. If you are on cloud version, this is not needed. So this is only for OP. And you need to have an Azure administrator account for you to be able to integrate your Azure portal with Endpoint Central. And the third one is you need to have any Microsoft recommended Autopilot license, meaning you need to purchase this license for all the users for whom you are going to configure Autopilot provisioning. So let me first explain the workflow. So what you'll be doing is you'll be integrating your Azure portal with your Endpoint Central server. So that is the first part. So you'll be integrating Azure and Endpoint Central. And after this integration, you will be adding your devices to your Azure portal. So that's the second part. So you will be adding the devices to Azure. And due to this integration, which you had already done, the devices will be provisioned into Endpoint Central. So I'll take you through the consoles and explain the workflow, how it is actually done. So first, we will look at this part, which is integration of your Endpoint Central server with Azure. So on your Azure portal, you can navigate to Entra, and under Manage, you will have Mobility option here. And over here, you will get an option to add the Manage Engine MDM application. So you can click on Add Application and you will find the application here. I've already added it, so you will find the application here. You can click on it and you will be able to add certain configuration. This is the configuration which is needed for Azure to redirect the device to the corresponding Endpoint Central solution, the MDM solution, which is Endpoint Central here. So these URLs need to be obtained from Endpoint Central portal. So in Endpoint Central portal, you can navigate to mobile device management, enrollment, and you will find Azure enrollment here. And you can click on Autopilot. Sorry, Azure. So over here, you will find the URLs which you need to copy and you can paste it here. So once you have done this configuration, this integration is done, meaning Azure is bound with Endpoint Central now, which is your MDM solution essentially. So this part is done. The next part is to add your devices to Azure. So for that, you need to navigate to the Azure portal, Azure admin portal. Over there, under devices, Windows devices, you will find the enrollment option. Devices, Windows, enrollment, and you will find the Windows Autopilot option here. So you can click on it and you can add the devices. So over here, you can get help from your authorized reseller to import all your hardware information. But if you want to manually add it also, let's say you have all the hardware IDs and you want to manually import them to Azure, that is also possible through the import option here. You can click on import and you can just add the CSV which contains all the hardware information. So your devices will get added here. And because of the integration, when the user logs into the system, when the device is newly accessed and the user logs in using their Azure credential, Azure will automatically redirect the device to Endpoint Central, which is the MDM solution, which we have bound already, and the device will get enrolled. So this is how it will look like on the device. So if you see here, there is a new device where the user will be logging in using his credentials. So once the credential is entered, it will reach Azure portal and Azure will redirect the user to the corresponding solution. So those part will be done here. Yeah, and this is the two-factor authentication where the user will have to authenticate themselves. So after the authentication is done, the device will get enrolled. Yeah. So this is a home page. After the device is set up on the home page, the user can click on settings, access work or school. And you'll be able to see that the Azure AD is already connected here. And under info, you'll be able to see the MDM solution, which is your Endpoint Central solution here. So once this is done, the device will get enrolled into MDM and it gets listed under the Managed Device tab. And once the device comes under Managed tab, Endpoint Central agent will also get automatically installed. So my colleague had previously explained what are all the agent installation options that were available through the agent module, right? So this is another option which is basically out of the box provisioning, where it gets enrolled into MDM module first, and through MDM module, the agent will get installed automatically. So you will be able to use all the Endpoint Central features along with the MDM features simultaneously. So this is for Windows devices. When we move on to the mobile devices, which are the handheld devices, like I said, there are separate options for Android and separate options for iOS devices. So the first one that we are going to look into is Knox mobile enrollment. Knox mobile enrollment is supported for all the Samsung Knox supported devices, meaning Knox is provided by Samsung, and hence only Samsung devices can be enrolled using this method. You will not be able to provision non-Samsung device using this method. In such case, you need to go for zero-touch enrollment, which is another enrollment option that we have for Android. And through this out-of-the-box provisioning for the smartphones, you will be able to automatically distribute applications and configurations or policies through or AD user authentication or even without AD user authentication. So I will just take you through the enrollment workflow. So under mobile device management, Android, you will have Knox mobile enrollment option here, where you will have certain information which you need to be adding to the Samsung Knox account. So I'll just show you how the Knox account will look like. On the Samsung Knox portal, you need to create an account for your organization, and this is how your admin portal will look like. And you need to click on Create Profile, and you will get an option similar to this, where you will be requiring the JSON data. So here is where you need to copy this JSON information and paste it. So once you have entered all the other information and click on Create, the profile will get created and it will get listed here. And then you can add your devices to the Knox portal, either through reseller or manually with your hardware ID. Similar to how we did for Azure Autopilot, you need to add all your devices. And you can select the profile and assign it to the corresponding devices that you have added. So let's say you have like 100 Samsung devices, which you are going to provision using this method. You can just select the profile and assign it to all those devices. So the MDM configuration will also get added onto those devices. So when the device is taken out of the box and when it is started up for the first time, it automatically fetches the MDM configuration and it gets enrolled here. So you will be able to find the device listed under the Managed tab. So that is one option for Android devices. Similarly, when we go to iOS devices, we have Apple Business Manager. In Apple Business Manager also, you need to have an account created for your own organization under Apple's portal called ABM, which is Apple Business Manager. The prerequisites for this enrollment option is you need to configure APNS certificate. APNS certificate is Apple Push Notification Service certificate. So Apple Push Notification is the notification service that's used by Apple to establish communication between Apple devices and your MDM solution, which is Endpoint Central. So it could be for iOS, iPadOS, or Mac. Any kind of Apple device that you're looking to manage, the first thing that you need to do is configuring APNS certificate. So that's the primary requirement. And the second prerequisite is you need to have purchased the devices from either an authorized reseller or from Apple directly. This is also important because you will not be able to directly add the devices to your Apple Business Manager if you do not have the customer ID or the reseller ID. So this is an important prerequisite as well. So I will show you the portal directly. So when you click on Apple enrollment under the ABM on the Endpoint Central console, you will find the option to add your ABM server. So you can click on Add Server. The first step is to download a certificate from Endpoint Central. This needs to be uploaded to the Apple Business Manager portal, which is ABM portal. As an acknowledgement, ABM portal will give you another token called server token, which needs to be uploaded here. So I will show you on the ABM portal how it will look like. So under ABM, just give me 1 second. Log in with this. Let me quickly show you the screenshot as it takes the time to log in. So on the ABM portal, once you have logged in, this is how it will look like. And you will have an option called preferences under your account name. So at the bottom left, you will have your account name. When you click on it, you'll get preferences. And when you click on that, you will get all your MDM servers, existing MDM servers. So let's say you are using multiple MDM solutions, maybe from Manage Engine or any other MDM server as well. So you can manage all those under your same ABM account. So all those will get listed here. So if you're going to add Manage Engine MDM for the first time, you can just click on Add, and you can enter the server name, which is Manage Engine MDM server or whatever name that you choose to give. And then you need to upload your public key here. Public key is essentially this token that you are downloading. So here is the preferences option. When you click on it, you will find the MDM servers that are already created. And when you click on Add, you will find the option to upload the public key here, right? So you can download the certificate and upload it here. So once you have uploaded it and you have saved this, you will find this button on the same page, which is download MDM server token. This is the one that needs to be downloaded and uploaded back to your MDM solution, which is Endpoint Central. Here, if you see, this is basically an exchange of tokens. You are downloading a token from Endpoint Central, uploading it to ABM, and as an acknowledgement, ABM is giving you a token and you're uploading it back here. So because of this exchange of tokens, both of these portals get integrated, and you can also configure your device activation settings, which is whether to activate the device using the user credentials, meaning through the AD credentials of the users, or do you want the admin to just activate it? And you can also configure the initial settings that the device need to go through. So if you want to skip all those initial setup visits, you can just choose skip all steps here, which will ensure that when the device is taken out of the box and when it is on, it immediately fetches the MDM configuration and it goes back to the home page directly. It will not go through any of these setup visits. Like it has multiple windows it goes through before it actually reaches the home page in an Apple device, right? So if you want to skip all those, you can make use of this option. So this is the same thing for the Mac devices as well. So if you want to skip the initial visit and if you want to configure the activation settings remotely, you can do so. So once this is done, you will be able to find all the devices added under your ABM account listed here. So similar to what we have done in Azure Autopilot, we have to add the devices also to your ABM portal, right, for it to get enrolled. So that can be done under the devices tab here. So we have added all the devices already. But if you are going to add the devices for the first time, all you need to do is enter your customer ID or your reseller ID. Meaning if the devices are purchased directly from Apple, you will be entering your Apple customer ID. And if the devices are purchased from reseller, you will be adding your reseller ID, which will automatically bring up all the devices mapped under your name here. So these are all the devices that are mapped already. So once the devices are listed here, you can just click on the device name and you can choose device management service. Over here, you can select the MDM service to which this device needs to be assigned to, and you can click on continue. So this way, the devices will be mapped to the corresponding MDM solution. So when the device is turned on for the first time, when it is taken out of the box, it will reach the Apple server, which is essentially ABM. And ABM will tell the device that this is the MDM solution to which you are mapped. And then it will fetch the MDM configuration and it will reach the Endpoint Central server. And the device will get listed here. And because the device is already set up, or if it is out of the box, the device will be listed under awaiting user assignment status, something similar to this. So you can just assign user and complete the enrollment. That is it. So once the devices are enrolled, here, if you have chosen admin, you will be asked to assign user here and the device activation will get completed. If not, if you have chosen user, the user will have to authenticate themselves using their AD credentials. That way, the activation will be done and the device will get successfully enrolled into MDM. And you will find the device listed under the Managed tab. If it is a handheld device like iOS or iPad OS, it will get enrolled and you will be able to make use of all these MDM features. But if it is a Mac device, once the device gets enrolled here, automatically Endpoint Central agent will also get installed on the device. Like it will be pushed to the device. So the user can install it and they'll be able to access all the Endpoint Central features as well. So these are the out-of-the-box provisioning options that we have for laptops as well as the handheld devices into Endpoint Central. So that is pretty much about the onboarding options that we have. If you have any further questions, please feel free to drop it in the Q&A chat and we'll be happy to help you. So we would love for you to rate this session on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is the best. Please do rate us, and we would also like you to spread the word about our free training sessions on our social media handles. So you can just see these handles on the corresponding platforms, and you can just share it. And this is the next training, which is scheduled for next week, securing and managing mobile devices for digital workspace. So you will get to know the policies and configurations that are available for the handheld mobile devices through Endpoint Central in your workplace in this session. And yeah, if you want to have a personalized demo session of Endpoint Central, you can drop it on the chat box as well. We have our panelists to help you, or you can just register using this link as well. Once again, thank you for joining the Endpoint Central training.